My name is Alex Cardona. I'm with SAP. I've been with SAP for 3+ years. I'm with my colleagues here. Coco is also co-presenting with me, and she'll be introducing herself during her session. I've been with SAP 3+ years. I've been in the ecosystem from an SAP and ERP perspective for about 20+. I've worked with a management consulting company, a systems integrator. I've been an industry practitioner in life sciences. I ran a drug substance global supply chain in biologics, and here I am with SAP. And so one of the more interesting things, that's a little bit about me, but one of the more interesting things is that I live in central New Jersey, and so I heard that I was coming to Minneapolis, and so like a true architect, I was preparing to be here, and so my research paid off, and so there's a little bit of a concept with the expectation and the reality and the business transformation and what you expect when you prepare for an experience like coming here. The other thing I'll say is it's my first time in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, my first time at this conference. And so I'm looking forward to having a great time with you all and learning a lot together with you. Anybody else first time here, Minneapolis, Minnesota? So I think I saw you all dressed like this at the airport as well. Yeah, ice fishing. Yeah. So we're going to get into really the topic around business transformation. I think some of the slides maybe are resonating with the group here. Yeah, we saw, you see how they took my microphone, I took your slides. Just kidding. So absolutely, that's the whole point of transformation, right? That's the idea, right? And so we're here to talk about that, right? We're here to talk about transformation. And so anybody raise your hand if you have led or participated or an executive sponsor for any type of transformation for your business. Please raise your hands. Awesome. So a good majority of the room. And so in that transformation and that initiative, we all know that really it's not a lack of strategy, right? Many of us work for, iconic companies, right? That have a long history, and there's true brain power behind those companies, right? There's a true strategy. But the way that Wendy Kuhn defines it, right? When it comes to business transformation, it's really bringing that strategy to reality. And that's where, a lot of times things kind of fall short. Speaking of Wendy Kuhn, and anybody here familiar with Wendy? The book Strategy to Reality, awesome. And so we use that as a way to ground the whole business transformation topic. And so when we talk about getting that bridge and making that strategy real, one of the things that we look at from a business architecture component, we use business architecture to help bridge that gap. And that's why we're here today. And so we're going to be talking about really that two key themes that you'll be hearing from us here. It's the ability to hypothesize using research and analysis, but then also doing storytelling and doing that in an iterative way, right? Developing that hypothesis and then also testing that with your stakeholders. That's very in tune with what we heard earlier in the keynote, right, from Neil when he talked about speaking that language with your stakeholders and with your business. And so I was really happy to see that he mentioned that. And so at SAP, we use a tool called the Business Capabilities, right? The Business Capability Workshop that would allow us to basically help bring that bridge, right, between strategy and the operating reality. And so Wendy defines it as, what the business must be able to do consistently, reliably to execute the strategy, independent of org structure and systems. And so what she's doing here is she's calling us to look at the business outcomes. Again, what Neil mentioned to us earlier in the keynote. And so what does that do? It positions us to ask a critical question, right? And that question is, what must we be good at to make this strategy real, right? And so that's why we use this tool, right? One of many called that Business Capability Workshop. And so that is a way for us as business architects to sit down and really have that connection with that stakeholder. And so that helps us bridge from that current state to future state. It helps us use that business capability workshop as a way to bring that hypothesis forward and test that with our stakeholders. And not to mention using tools like AI, tools like that allow you to do real-time data capture, like what Coco is going to present to us here in a couple of minutes. And so I think it's important to note historically, we have, before the advent of all these tools, we've relied on more static type of methods, spending a lot of time through spreadsheets or reports that are out of date. And so if we fast forward, for example, when I joined SAP back in 2022, I really wasn't using AI. You fast forward today, I use it every day for my day-to-day work. Another example is capturing architecture diagrams in PowerPoint. In my 3 years at SAP, short 3 years, we've gone from PowerPoint to a persistent state using a tool called LeanIX, where it allows you to maintain all these architecture components in a persistent state. And that's really important because it allows you to keep the enterprise reference architecture. And so the last point here is where we're spending our time. And that's really important, right? Whereas in that static world, we're looking at, spending a lot of time gathering data, whereas today we're kind of propelling more into becoming the strategic orchestrator, right? So we're going from data gatherers to strategic orchestrators, and again, being able to position ourselves to drive that conversation and have that language with the right stakeholders. And then finally, this is my final slide, and I'm going to show you guys how we do this using some tools in AI. And so, what does that being a storyteller mean, right? From our perspective. And so what that means is there's really 3 key questions, right? What's happened? What's that timeline in that journey? Whether it's for your company, your division, your customer, how did that change or what changed? And then what's needed next, right? And so think of this as kind of taking what Neil said earlier today and then putting a kind of a structure and a framework around it to help answer those questions and be able to connect with those business stakeholders or other stakeholders, right? And so in answering those 3 questions, there's other areas that are pretty common as we look at the organizations and the companies that we work with. And that is, there's always a transformation story, right? There's always a piece of history that's happened that's important to understand. Maybe some crisis or maybe some merger, things like that are important to understand. But then there's that challenge of mountains of data and spending all that time. The previous slide talked about the time that we spend in doing that. But now with the use of tools like AI, we can save that time to generate the data, generate the analysis, but then use that time really to tell that story and connect with the business. And that's that AI-powered discovery. And so with that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you exactly how we use these tools in AI to help bridge and bring together a really compelling story. So one of the tools out there that we use, we use OpenAI, we use Gemini, we use ChatGPT, Perplexity, and we chose to use these tools because these are commonly available. Obviously, we all have tools like within our organizations that have those firewalls and have more protection of client confidentiality, allows us to really crawl through our own databases and our own material so that we can do a lot of that analysis. And so I'm going to give an example of the NBA, the National Basketball Association. We chose that because it is it's a non-public company, and therefore there's less information available, less financial reports, but you can still accomplish a good amount of research and tell that story with the NBA. And so we wrote some prompts. And so if I go here and I bring up our first prompt, I'm going to copy that. Here I have a new version of Gemini. All right, now you can see it. All right, perfect. So all I did was just copy an AI prompt, and I'm putting it inside the uh, the AI. And so what this does is it starts to help answer the question of what happened, what was the timeline. And here you starts to give you the research summary. It starts to give you the revenue trajectory, and this is all in the AI prompt that we built. And I'm going to walk you through that. But here's the more important piece: is this SVG. Who here is familiar with the concept of an SVG? Okay, we have a few. And so the idea of an SVG is that it allows you to bring in really what traditionally would be a PNG or a static image file. And rather than making that static, you can pull that into PowerPoint and you can edit it. And that's an accelerator like that. This is something I'm going to show you by copying this. I'm gonna bring it into PowerPoint and show you what it looks like and how you can edit it to tell that story. So here I'm copying it. So I deleted the one that was there before. I'm creating a new one called demo. I'm going to save it. I'm going to bring it up here. Here it is, demo. I'm going to open it, and here I have a what it's starting to show is a journey and the timeline of what's happened in that journey for the MBA. It also gives you this error. This will happen with AI tools. You just never know. We tested this, multiple times, and so it is very easy to fix. And you can say, so it'll tell you what the error was. It'll give you the code again. So it's generating the code. Then you can copy, go back here. And you want to make sure it's an SVG file. And so here's your timeline demo. You save, you replace, and then we come back and take a look. Here it is, and there it is. And so now we have this SVG file. It's sitting in a HTML, and I'll import it into PowerPoint in a minute. But the key here is we have AI prompts that allow us to do this type of storytelling using factual data, in this case, out in the internet, and it gives you the source. It tells you the events that have happened over the timeline. It tells you where things happened from a pandemic perspective, where they have been able to go from a gatekeeper revenue model to a direct-to-consumer revenue model, where they've had global expansion, where they had less revenues, more revenues. And so it gives you the ability to capture, in essence, what is that timeline, right? What is that story that's happening in transformation? And so this is important because now we're enabled to bring this type of analysis fast. I just did this in less than 20 minutes, and I could keep doing this for 2 hours, 1 week, 2 weeks, and you can imagine what I can generate in terms of rich insights and rich storytelling to bring to my stakeholders. So I'll show you a few more examples. I won't do the AI for the prompts because, as you can see, I had to do some error fixing, but I can give you some examples that using the same process, we went and did we followed the same process to write those AI prompts. And those AI prompts are going to be available to you, by the way. They're in the deck. Here is the next AI prompt that we wrote. That is the National Basketball Association Business Model Canvas. So this is another way to, again, tools that have been around for years, for decades, but a different way of using that same tool to communicate that message to your stakeholders. And it's hard to argue with this, right? This is factual. And so again, and you have the sources that are referenced, right? The AI prompts are set up to have some quality checks, right? And make sure that it is factual. And so again, a business model canvas. And the last one I will show you. If you wanted to get ready for that capability assessment framework, have that business capability workshop, this prompt will say, hey, what are those capability areas of conversation to bring to the stakeholders, to bring to the business? What are the discovery questions, and what are the metrics that are important to talk about? So I wanted to share that with you all. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it over to Coco. Just one last, yep, there we go.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, everybody. My name's Coco Bassi. How's everyone doing after lunch? Did everyone get their tacos, etc.? All right. Quick show of hands. I know we had some more people that came in. Who has participated in a workshop in some way, shape, or form? Who's led a workshop? All right. So my first experience participating in a workshop was when I was actually, before SAP, I was an accountant. Odd choice for me, very extroverted. But we were going through process optimization of our FP&A process. And I found myself thinking that there were a lot of manual steps in the process to run a workshop, a lot of Post-it notes. And then since then, now 7 years at SAP, watching my peers, watching partners, watching our customers run various workshops, is pretty much consistent. Over the years, there's been a lot of manual work in preparing for these workshops and bringing together all the different, whether that be business capabilities or business processes, trying to find a better way of working has been extremely manual. And so I kept thinking there's got to be a better way to do things. So that's what we're here to do today, is to show you some practical tips for running your next workshop by leveraging technology that is available to you today. So hopefully coming out of this workshop, everybody will be prepared to be the best workshop leader that they can be. Keep in mind that these are tips, tools, tricks, and it's not just for business capability workshop application. You could use these in just about any format. But we just wanted to empower you guys with what's available to you today so that moving forward, there's less work on you and easier outcomes.
Let me touch.
Who's there? No. Has everybody heard the expression, the squeakiest wheel gets the most grease or gets the most oil? Who knows the squeaky wheel? I found that at every company I've worked at, there's a lot of squeaky wheels, a lot of gregarious folks, and then there's a lot of really smart introverts who don't necessarily speak up, though their information and their knowledge is extremely valuable and needs to be captured. And that's something that I've seen in these workshops, is that sometimes not only is there a lot of manual work, you're kind of trusting either a partner or your team that's running it to capture all of the voices in the room. And if you're not leveraging some sort of technology to do that, data capture, and whether that be AI, and then you're relying on the AI large language model of your choice to do that, capturing summation of those different points, you want to make sure that that's captured so that you can accurately make a suggestion, recommendation to your leadership to achieve your outcomes that you're looking to, et cetera, et cetera. So in this traditional model, there's a lot of goodness that comes with it, getting everybody together, discuss, collaborate. We're not looking to reinvent that. As Neil said, it's what is it? It's successive refinement. There we go. I wrote it down for a reason. We're looking to iterate on what exists, not completely reinvent the wheel, make things easier, introduce technology so that you can lower costs, lower risks, and ultimately do this at scale. In fact, I've participated in a workshop with a customer in the Midwest, a beverage producer, and we spent 2 months of 6 to 8 hour days going through their business process for each different region globally so that we could understand their pain points, understand their process, how that differs, and then come up with a standardized process globally. Let me tell you, when our leadership was like, so what are their main pain points? I was like, your guess is as good as mine. Which region do you want? So having to scale this and listen to all of that versus distilling it down into some quick takeaways and be able to prioritize their pain points and their challenges that they're going through would have been really, really nice and a lot more time effective. All right. So in my section, we're going to be focusing on the center 3 arrows today. Alex showed you the preparation, and then our colleague Juan and Adelia are still working on, the post workshop deliverable. But in terms of how we can leverage these opportunities for enhancement, right? There's a couple different areas that I wanted to focus on. The first is pulling together all of the business capabilities. At SAP, we use LeanIX. So there's a library where we go and pull down all of that reference business architecture and then incorporate it into this technology that we're going to be showing, not reinventing the wheel, not trying to bring everything in from scratch, a lot less manual work right off the bat. The second is using this technology that you're gonna get a little demo sample right after this, called Mentimeter for capturing quantifiable discovery. You know what? You'll see it in a second. I'm not going to say much more here. And then thirdly, I find that education and enablement in these workshops is kind of an afterthought, or some partners will say, well, we're going to cover that after we do some discovery. I've been in workshops with a CPG company very locally that was going through, and their partner was asking them to essentially give up full-time employee headcount without educating them on what the future state is and the capabilities. So they're saying, hey, how efficient can your team be if that wasn't an issue, but without understanding how they're going to run in the future state, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for enablement, and it becomes even more important as AI development continues, as we roll out new updates to our cloud solutions. So the opportunity to keep enabling your business stakeholders, your leadership team, people who are really affected by the business capabilities that you're talking to them about or process, it needs to be like a constant evolution and embedded in these workshops. And I find that it tends to be an afterthought. So what we're going to do is go into a bit of the discovery. This is something that I found to be helpful when trying to conduct a workshop, whether it be in person, whether it be fully remote or a hybrid of both. It doesn't really matter, but what we're going to do is go through today. So if you all could get out your phones, please. The first step is going to be to scan a QR code and then do some little intro questions because we love an icebreaker. These little yellow dots are where, if you were a workshop leader leveraging this tool, this is where you might want to pause, have an executive sponsor kick off, maybe ensure that your groups understand what the goals are of the workshop, make sure that you're all aligned on what the outcome is so that when we get to the step of answering the sample questions, which there are 35, but it'll be fine. No, I'm joking. Tanya in the back made sure that we only had 5 of them today. We're not going through a full workshop, but they're at your own pace. So the objective is to assign each piece of pain or each business capability a pain number and an opportunity to improve score. So then together, you'll see it's going to be plotted out. Afterwards, in a workshop, that's when you'll have a really great opportunity to discuss everybody's feedback. It'll be plotted out. You're going to get to see a result of that and how the tool puts it together into a result little report so that you can understand where consensus is, where it's not, and then have better targeted enablement. And then we'll have time to discuss your feedback, your thoughts, all of that. All right. So everyone can scan. Has anyone used Mentimeter before? Have you used it for like a fun little intro game at like a meeting, or have you used it for a workshop purpose? Both? All right. Love to hear it. Okay, we have 29 people in here. Are we all, anyone need another minute for the QR code, or are we good? All right. To no one's surprise, most people are from the Twin Cities. All right. We got some in New Jersey. I'm from Chicago. I should be where that little dot is on the lake. Someone as far as Washington. Wonderful. I know we're all architects here, or, you know, I should assume that we're all architects here, but this next question is just, oh, who do you work for? Da boss. Love that. Is that me? Mayo, Best Buy, Brooksource, CHS, Tech Systems, SAP, Anderson, Target, Prime Therapeutics, Pedersen. Love it. All right. Resoundingly, most are enterprise architects, as expected. Business architects. The fight between the architects continues. All right. So moving on, this is what I mentioned about assigning each different business capability a score. So at the end of it, we're going to have a nice graph. Who here loves a graph, loves a chart, visual? Because we're nerds. I love it. So this is where I find that it's best to, well, it can all be random, but as you're working with your business, make sure that they understand before going into it relativity. So if this is their biggest pain point and there's no workarounds, that they reflect that. If there's a workaround and they're able to get their job done, but it still needs improvement, then maybe it ends up into the needs improvement quadrant, but not necessarily their top burning issue. The beauty of using a tool like this is that you can filter at the end. So very helpful. So as you go through, as I mentioned, you know, it's going to plot our data points onto this axis, so you can see all of them together and the different business capabilities or the business modules. And then you can go even more in depth, but for our purposes today, we're keeping it very high level. So we get a little sample of each of the different business processes. You see where everyone is moving these based off of the average. So if you take a look at it as numbers come in, they're adjusting, and then we're going to get to see in the readout a little bit more of a breakdown as to where each different data point behind that aggregation was plotted. So we got record to report, and then lastly, governance, enterprise strategy and data. And then I think that a lot of folks like to include discussion, make sure that their thoughts, their needs are written down somewhere and not, you're not relying on somebody to, you know, voice your concerns all the way up the chain. So I like having open-ended questions in addition to the quantitative discovery so that you have the why that backs up the what. Most people do have a lot of repetitive tasks. And so this is where I think it also benefits your business participants to discuss what's going on with AI, what's going on with automation, where are there opportunities to automate, because we know that that's always changing, it's always going to be improving. And so what is available today, tomorrow, and on the roadmap that they can start to leverage or plan to in the future. All right, so now we have reached the end of our workshop sample. I see we're still getting a lot of these answers in though. So what I'm going to do though is show you kind of behind the scenes. So as we exit, we're going to go into the results. Of the folks that have used Mentimeter in workshops, do you leverage the results tab, or are you more of a participant in these Mentimeters? Okay. One results, one participant. Everyone else, is this new to you? Yes, love it. Okay. All right, so as we go through the results, can everyone see it all right? I could zoom in a little bit. So as we go through, you're going to see each of the different business process areas where all of these data points are. So if you hover over, say, manufacturing engineering, you see that there's low agreement. There's no consensus. Everyone had their own idea if you look at all of this. And so the beauty of taking data points like this is that it's going to show you where you need to start your discussions. Say there needs to be some process improvement. And what I found in my experience listening into a lot of our customers' workshops and conversations is that, say it's not necessarily an issue for the manufacturing team, but it's a huge issue for, say, like supply chain planning team. There may be effects up or downstream that you don't know about, but your colleagues need a solution in order to make their day jobs easier and better and to solve some of their challenges. So as you go through here, you can see all the different plots where there's low agreement. And in our workshop example, it seems like we're going to have to discuss just about everything because there's no consensus. All right. Well, as you can see, so this would guide your discussion, and there are examples of medium and high agreement where you can kind of skip past those. But ultimately, like I mentioned, we're looking to make things a little bit more automated, reduce the manual work that you all are experiencing in your day-to-day. Tanya, when you were running workshops, how long would it take you to put together a deliverable after running a workshop? Now just think if you had some tool to help bring that down just a little bit and turn it into hours, if not maybe days rather than weeks, to get a deliverable back to your customer, to get to some of these insights and get to some of these discussion points and critical pain points and opportunities without all that manual work. So that's what we're looking to do, really, is incorporate tools, technology, so that you can not only substantiate the challenges and the opportunities that your customers or your business, when I say customers, also your internal customers, that your business is asking for, make sure that you can identify any gaps from priorities between your business and between your leadership, because I've also seen that come up where, say, some big pain points and challenges are not actually the top KPI that's off. And so there's a little bit of misalignment there in terms of what priorities are. And then to further guide your roadmap in terms of where you want to invest in technology, invest in more people, or do business process optimization and kind of rework some processes. So you may be thinking to yourself, all right, I ran a workshop, now what? Well, we're going to take some of these outputs so you can export. Not only, you don't have to just look at that scatter plot of the different data points, though they are available. You can also export those out to Excel. Not that we want these living in Excel. What we're doing is working on putting that into a template that you could upload that back into LeanIX so that you can further understand your priorities, your roadmaps, your initiatives that you need incorporated into your landscapes. And then lastly, I put my sample data from the first trial run of this into Microsoft Copilot. So taking a large batch of this survey data, the quantified discovery, we're putting that into a large language model of your choice and letting that come up with averages, take a lot of the main pain points, opportunities, manual areas, what they need from their colleagues, whatever questions that you ask, make a summary of that and get that into a format that's presentable to leadership so that they can understand their top 10 areas of opportunity for the year. All right. All of this is going to be available to you, right? So the presentations, the AI prompts, we can even try and get this Mentimeter template out to you guys. But this is the content that we had prepared for you all today. I'd like to say thank you for your attention, your participation. But before we wrap up, are there any questions? Impressions? Do you hate it? Would you ever use it? Start here. Yes, you hate it. No. No. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've used Mentimeter for business architecture, ERG planning, and getting feedback, and I love the tool. I guess there's a lot of different components. You can do the grid, you can do like
Word cloud.
Yeah, the
Scales. Yeah.
I think in terms of leveraging it for architecture, executives, getting customer engagement, what is something that surprised you? Like, oh my God, wow, that is amazing, and we should have known about this like a year ago. What's been one of your favorite parts of it?
For me personally, it is this pain improvement, being able to plot those pain points. My experience has been, even going back to when I was an accountant, some people thought that their pain points were the biggest issue of the day, but didn't understand the downstream effects. So being able to see sort of an end-to-end and paint a story of like, maybe this is somebody's pain point, but it's not the organization's pain point, and being able to help our leadership reprioritize and getting the full picture. And I think that being able to go in and filter on the results too, between the team that you're talking to that's primarily responsible for that business capability in that business area versus IT versus, back operations, like anything like that, being able to do that. But I also think that to the point about like, how does this help deliver that message to leadership? I do think some of the reporting of the results that you get as it aggregates that and provides some of the context, being able to get that out of the system, being able to show that to a leader, because it is really intuitive and they get to click around in there. I find that that's been very helpful to them. Yeah, my most recent workshop, that was the big takeaway, was that they didn't understand necessarily how bad it was for folks. And then we got the opportunity to go back and say, okay, why is it so bad? And then do that education. Turns out they're not issuing production orders. Maybe a big issue we need to look into, and so it helps to guide that. So for me, it's the quantification. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to are there prompts to identify that within your business capability framework to then accelerate that conversation?
So I start with talking to the business about what the intention of the workshop is. So we start there, and then I go to the Lean IX reference business architecture library, and that's where I start pulling it in. And we need to understand the intended outcome of those workshops. Is it meant to get so granular to start getting into almost like consulting, where we need to do some process reengineering, get to a really very detailed solution? Or is it to start the discovery high and then go deeper and deeper? I find that starting with the standard, adding in any sort, adding or tweaking any sort of your own specific business capabilities to that business architecture reference model, and then adding it into Mentimeter. But I haven't been able to say, your supply chain, you don't need to do the rest of these or anything, or make it user specific as they go through.
Yeah, and so using the AI prompts that we wrote, if you think about the three boxes, right? We talked about, what's happened, right? What's that timeline in that business? That's important because that allows you to discover that business model. And the second one is what changed that business model canvas. Looking at that, I think is really important because a lot of times, there's that story of transformation and the business may have changed. The NBA is actually a great example. It's a great case study of that because if you think about the caterpillar to the butterfly, they changed the model, their business model. And that's a clue, right? As architects, we have to investigate, right? And so we look for those data points. And I think that's where that rich insight around what are the capabilities I really need to go after. And that was the third part, what next? That's the next question. And that's what those three AI prompts are written to help go discover. And that third slide, I think I probably went through it maybe a little bit too quick, but that's what it highlighted, 4 capabilities for that specific example. So they are written to do that. They're not perfect. As we all know, AI is advancing, right? But it's definitely a good start. I would start there. But great question. We deal with that that's what we do, right? And I think that's a great question. Any other questions from the team? Yes, gentlemen back there. Absolutely. It's a hypothesis, right? That's the idea that you don't walk into the workshop cold. You walk into the workshop with some options, with some hypothesis, but absolutely, you have to fact check that and you have to make sure that all the pieces add up and that it makes sense so that you walk in there prepared. It's like what Neil mentioned earlier, right? You walk in with options, you record the decision. Why did you make those decisions? I think Neil talked a lot, and this wasn't planned. Like I had no idea, but what he laid out, I thought was real excellent. Like the what, I think we're talking about the how. How do we do this? And the other thing is we're so busy. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like my workload increases every year. So it's like, hey, then it's more AI and it's more of this automated stuff. And it's that slide that showed how my job back in, just a few years ago without AI, and now using AI allows me to be, a little bit more productive. But I won't say more because my supervisor's here and I don't want to get more work. Any other questions? I think we're right at time, actually. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.